Good afternoon. My name is Evgenia, and I will be talking about the production of Russian E and U by Russian English bilingual children. Vowel production has been extensively studied in bilingual adults. From previous literature, we know that bilingual adults are able to form vowel categories in both languages, even if the categories are close in the acoustic space. While doing so, adults employ several strategies such as dissimulation and assimilation. When dissimulation is employed, a new category is established. Assimilation means the merger of the categories. We also know that age of acquisition and everyday language experience play important roles. We know that early bilinguals produce the vowels with the quality more monolingual-like as opposed to late bilinguals. When it comes to children, things get a little more complicated, and the vowel production has not been extensively studied. However, we know that when children acquire two languages, it takes them longer to start accurately producing vowels in more marked languages or languages with larger phonetic inventories. Moreover, when languages with larger phonetic inventories are introduced, the number of errors in the first language starts increasing. The acoustic investigation of the vowel production in Korean English bilingual children by Lee Iverson demonstrates that children show monolingual like quality of production even after 2 years of exposure. Russian vowel system consists of five phonemes, or arguably six. Despite the small number of vowels, there is a large number of allophones in Russian. They are determined by a preceding consonant. There are two types of consonants in Russian, hard and soft. Soft consonants are also known as palatalized, and they are produced by the front of the tongue being raised and almost touching the hard palate, and followed by a glide that sounds like y. The unresolved question when it comes to the number of vowels in the Russian vowel system is whether U should be constituted as a separate phoneme or it should be considered as a allophone of E. Phonetically, U is characterized as a high, central, unrounded vowel. In terms of spectral dynamics, its typical feature is the increase in the second formant. It is also has a diphthong-like nature and is often perceived as E when followed by a consonant, by soft consonant. There are two major phonological schools in Russia that differ in their approaches towards describing a phonemic inventory in any given language and what constitutes as a phoneme. Moscow Phonological School, who employ more of a morphological criteria when describing a phoneme, claim that U should be considered an allophone of E. They state that vowels alternate depending on the phonetic context, and in the process of morphological derivation, and E should be considered the main variant due to the limited distribution of U. U only never occurs word initially, and only occurs after hard consonants, and never after soft consonants. St. Petersburg Phonological School, who employ more of an experimental phonetics approach when describing a phoneme, claim that U should be considered an independent phoneme. They argue that as opposed to Moscow Phonological School's view, U is not such a limited distribution. It does occur word initially in certain instances, and it is in contrastive distribution with other vowels, and serves as a semantically differentiating unit. And moreover, native Russian speakers treat U as an independent entity and can pronounce it in isolation. The major questions that we attempted to answer in this study were the following. We wanted to see if the Russian English bilingual children form separate categories for the EU vowel contrast, and if they do, how is the quality of their vowel production different from the quality of the vowel production of the monolingual speakers? Next, we wanted to see how does daily language experience, primarily age of acquisition and current daily use of Russian, affect the quality of bilingual vowel production. And finally, we wanted to see how can this data contribute to the debate regarding the phonemic status of the vowel contrast. To answer these questions, we tested 12 Russian English bilingual children. Almost all of them were born in the United States. They were all exposed to Russian since birth. They had either one or two Russian speaking parents and attended schools where primary language of instruction was English. I should note, though, that only the data from 11 participants was used for statistical analysis, because later we found out that one children had a high input in another language, in the third language, in Spanish, and English was her third language, as opposed to other participants. Because there's no prior acoustic investigation of the production of by children, we also tested two Russian monolingual children as controls. Both of these children were born and live in Russia, and they're 10 years old, and we used their measurement as baseline measures. Our stimuli were mono, bi, and trisyllabic real words. Almost all of them were nouns, with a few exceptions, and they were all high frequency items. All target vowels were embedded in stressed syllables, since vowels in Russian undergo vowel reduction when positioned in unstressed syllables. All experiments were conducted remotely via Zoom, and recordings were made with iPhone using the voice memo app. Children had to perform two tasks. The first task was the naming task. They saw images on the screen and had to name those images in Russian. 20 words per vowel were used in this experiment, and every word was repeated twice. So overall, 40 tokens were collected in the end of this task. The second task was the repetition task. Children saw images on the screen, and they had to repeat a sentence in Russian after a native Russian-speaking experimenter, me, and the sentence was the following: "Я могу сказать," which means I can say, and then the target word twice. 40 words per vowel were used in this task, and overall 80 tokens were collected in the end of this task. If everything went successful, 120 tokens were collected per participant for the analysis. Next, we conducted acoustic analysis using prod, and we obtained vowel duration, F1 and F2 measures, as well as fundamental frequency at 10, 20, 50, 70, and 80% of the vowel. Here's the example of the experimental items. Next, we calculated the individual F1 and F2 means and plotted them in the vowel space. We observed that the majority of the participants produced Russian vowel U closer to the Russian participants, to the way Russian participants produced the same vowel. And similarly, we observed that bilingual E was close to Russian E. I have not collected English samples in this experiment. Here, the means are taken from Hildebrand et al. I just wanted to see how they look in the vowel space, where in the vowel space they are located. Next, all the values were converted into bark for the analysis and also plotted in the vowel space. And here we see that for the most part, the participants were able to separate these two vowels, to clearly contrast these two vowels, with a few exceptions. Next, we looked at the individual patterns of production of these two vowels, and we observed that the main difference was in the second formant. We observed three major trends. There were participants who produced both vowels very similar to monolinguals, and they clearly contrasted these two vowels. There were a few participants who clearly contrasted the vowels, but their production patterns were slightly different from the monolinguals, and there was higher variability in the production of U. There were three participants who clearly did not contrast the vowels and whose production patterns were completely different from the monolinguals. And moreover, their F2 values for U were similar to F2 values for E. We also looked at the language background questionnaire and calculated the total percentage of the input in English and Russian. And we observed that there were a few participants whose input in Russian was relatively high, and there were participants whose input in Russian was low. One interesting observation that we made here was that the three participants who showed production different from the monolinguals and who did not contrast the two vowels also were not only the participants who had the low input in Russian, but also they were the only three participants who had only one Russian speaking parent, as opposed to the rest of the participants who had two Russian speaking parents. In the future, it would be interesting to see with the matched number of participants with one Russian speaking parent and two Russian speaking parents, if the number of Russian speaking parents affects the quality of the vowel productions. Next, we conducted the statistical analysis by compared bilingual productions with the monolingual control. And we used ANOVAs and t-tests. However, only the p-values from the t-test will be presented here. When we compared the productions of the Russian English bilingual speakers with the monolingual controls, we observed that only bilingual participants produced U with a significantly higher F1 and F2. And no difference was observed in the production of E between the two groups. Next, we also compared the two groups of bilinguals with high Russian input and low Russian input and the monolingual control, and we observed that only the group with the low Russian input produced E with the higher F2 values than the monolingual controls, and then the group with the high Russian input. And finally, we observed that the group with the high Russian input produced both vowels with higher first formants than the monolingual controls, and the group with the low input, which was an unexpected finding for us. The main takeaways from this study are the following. Overall, bilingual children were fairly successful at establishing a contrast between E and Ö. However, more Russian input is crucial for monolingual-like production of Ö. Not only the age of acquisition, but ongoing language experience and input affect the quality of productions of this complex contrast. And as far as the phonological status of U, it is still unclear. We saw that some of the participants clearly contrasted these two vowels. However, some of the participants struggled to do so. It is not clear why some of the participants struggled. Possibly they don't have it in their phonemic inventory, and possibly they don't have access towards these phonemes, or they fail at implementing phonetic cues such as hard and soft consonants. In the future, I would like to investigate it in more detail. Uh, my future directions will be to collect the data from more participants, as well as collect productions of English vowels, and the perception study, do the perception study as well. I would like to thank all the families who participated in my study during this crazy year, and the members of my two labs, developmental speech perception, developmental neurolinguistics labs, and my advisors, Dr. Valerie Schaefer and Dr. Suzanne Fonterfest. Thank you very much.